On New Year's Eve, 1977, President Jimmy Carter stood in Tehran and raised his glass to America's closest ally in the Middle East. He called Iran an island of stability. He praised the respect, admiration, and love the people felt for their monarch, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the King of Kings. 14 months later, the island of stability had erupted. The Shah was dead of cancer, exiled, a refugee wandering the globe. A mystery man in a black turban had returned from Paris to lead a revolution. The alliance was shattered, replaced by the hostage crisis and the Islamic Republic. How did the most powerful nation on earth, with the largest CIA station in the world and thousands of troops on the ground, miss the biggest geopolitical earthquake of the late 20th century? Chapter 1. The Shakespearean Tragedy, The King. Scott Anderson argues the disaster wasn't an accident. It was a story of hubris, delusion, and catastrophic miscalculation. It starts with the king himself. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was a figure straight out of Shakespeare. One part Hamlet, one part Richard II. He was outwardly majestic, the shadow of God on earth, but inwardly paralyzed by insecurity. Look at his hubris. In 1971, as poverty festered, he threw a party at Persepolis costing hundreds of millions of dollars to celebrate the monarchy's 2500th anniversary. He was so disconnected from reality that he believed his secret police, the SAVAK, had crushed all dissent. But Anderson shows us the fatal moment. It happened right after Carter's visit. Chapter 2. The Spark Flush. With praise from the American president, the Shah ordered a hit piece. He wanted a pseudonymous article published accusing a dissident cleric living in Iraq, a man named Ayatollah Khomeini, of being a British agent and a foreigner. His advisors warned him, "Don't stir up trouble," they said, "ignore him." But the Shah, deluded by his own grandeur, refused to listen. The article triggered outrage in the holy city of Qom. Students protested, the army opened fire. Here is the catastrophic miscalculation. In Shia Islam, the mourning period for the dead lasts 40 days. Every 40 days, the mourners return to the streets to commemorate the martyrs of the previous protest. And every 40 days, the Shah's troops panicked and fired again. The Shah turned a minor dispute into a rolling revolution. Chapter 3. The citadel of fatuousness. But the Shah was only half the equation. Anderson reserves his sharpest critique for the Americans, specifically the Carter administration and the revolving door of the White House. The U.S. Embassy in Tehran, the largest in the world, had become what the LA Review of Books calls a citadel of fatuousness. There was a lone diplomat, Michael Matrinko. He spoke Farsi. He actually went into the bazaars and listened to the students. He sent cable after cable warning that the Shah was hated and the country was on fire. His reports were labeled alarmist and filed away. In Washington, the National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski wanted to send the military in. He saw the unrest through a Cold War lens, communist plots. Meanwhile, the State Department realized the Shah was done. Carter vacillated, paralyzed. Chapter 4. The Exile. And what of the man of the hour? The Ayatollah Khomeini. The Shah made a second catastrophic mistake. He pressured Saddam Hussein in Iraq to expel Khomeini. Why? Because Hussein hated the Shah. He was happy to release this troublemaker. Khomeini was put on a plane to Paris and Najaf. Khomeini was isolated. In Paris, he was on CNN. Now, the world's media from the BBC to Le Monde could drive to his little house in Neauphle-Château every day. His fiery sermons were recorded on cassettes and smuggled back to Iran. The Americans had no idea what he was saying because no one in the CIA bothered to translate his tapes accurately. His aides, like the Texan-trained Dr. Yazdi, softened his image, telling the Americans he was essentially a moderate nationalist. They thought they could make a deal with him. They thought he would be a tame third world nationalist. They were wrong. King of Kings concludes with a warning. The fall of the Shah wasn't just the fall of a dictator. It was the birth of the modern era of religious nationalism. It was the template for the hatred of an economically marginalized, religiously fervent populace against a wealthy, secular, Western-backed elite. Scott Anderson argues that the Iranian Revolution is as world-shattering as the French or Russian revolutions. And it happened because two men, a deluded king and an arrogant superpower, were so certain of their own reality that they refused to see the ground shifting beneath their feet. It is a story of blindness, arrogance, and the terrible price of ignoring the truth.